have a squeal. We're over to Mr. Barker, who is going to let us know how all the wonderful results.
You look wonderful. It is my pleasure to give a briefing. This is not the full report. A briefing as to the results of the accreditation review. As you know, Advanced Ed does require a review every 5 years. This is a new protocol. Advanced Ed not only requires you to look at yourself every 5 years, it looks at itself more than every 5 years. This is a new protocol over the last 2 years. I will tell you that we are representing Advanced Ed. None of us are employees of Advanced Ed. By the way, most of the team have departed, not due to lack of interest, but security gate concerns at the airport or driving back to wherever in close by states. Alabama, several drove down, as well as across the state here. We are volunteers. We are several of, as it looks like an army when we come in, I'm sure. Advanced Ed is an institution that has become a global leader. It has adopted or incorporated the services of many organizations, primarily the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools that we in the East know well. It is providing continuous improvement support and accreditation services and are marrying the two. Do the two at the same time together, I think, in an excellent protocol. You see some of the numbers there. We're in all 50 states in the United States, plus Puerto Rico, the Navajo Nation, plus 70 other countries around the globe. It's a accreditation protocol, a series of steps that we take wherever we go, looking at capacity, effectiveness, and efficiency. It works as well in Southwest Florida as it does in Bozeman, Montana. Same pieces of paper, same team members. Phoenix to South Ripley, Indiana, where I'm going next month. It's a school district of 3 schools on one campus, okay? You know the size I'm talking about. It works equally as well in Little Rock, Arkansas, as it does in the Canary Islands. It's an international protocol. We are volunteers because we have seen it work from your side of the table. We are educators who have retired or not retired, soon to be retiring, who believe in the power of those accreditation reviews, recommendations, and so forth. We spent our time looking at 3 major components, not trying to find problems, but looking at key areas that make an organization effective. Your leadership, including board and principals, administrators, learning capacity, meaning we value the time we spend in our schools looking at and listening to and feeling what's going on in the classroom, and resource capacity, because schools cannot happen unless you have money, personnel, facilities to back up those classrooms. We know that. These are global areas, but we spend all of our time in those. We believe accreditation is a vehicle to look at yourself, to improve, to guide institutional improvement. We had a team of 19 folks. At the last minute, we could not replace one member, so we had 18 folks visit. By design, Advanced Ed brings in team members from the state where the institution is located, as well as hopefully half of the people from out of state. We do this because of everyone a balance, hoping to get a balance of experience, perceptions, and awareness. I'm from Virginia. We have weird things happening in Virginia. But guess what? So does Florida. And some of those weird things are the same things no matter what state you go to. We just call them something different. We're all about educating children. We were very fortunate to have a great team. One of our team members got sick. Second night she was here. But we worked together and came up with a fine review for you, we think. The role of the team is first to look at the data, look at what's going on. We read about you before we got here. We were provided with lots of materials, lots of documentation. We searched the Department of Ed workspace. We looked at newspaper articles. We knew a little bit about you, but you only know that through a lens of somebody else. We wanted to see firsthand data. So we interviewed, we looked at documents. We weren't bashful for asking for additional documentation. We're all experienced educators, but we didn't bring our biases to the table. We're counseled not to do that. We are representing Advance Ed, so we're representing the statements, the standards, the protocols, the expectations of Advance Ed, which have been researched, validated, rather than relying on my personal biases. It's a much better way to go. And if we did our job well, and we're not finished yet, but if we did our job well in our nights of discussions and deliberations, hopefully we will provide meaningful feedback to you for you to continue your growth. Key findings, this is from the learning environment. That's the Advanced Ed term for classrooms. We visited 120-some classrooms, I believe it was. I didn't look, again. I said I was. And we watch and we listen to children. Some of them are 12th grade children, but we listen and watch the kids, not the teacher. Are they paying attention? Are they engaged? No matter what a teacher does, and we have magicians for teachers, some of them, but if you're not tuning into that child's needs, we can pick up on that with our tools. So we watch and listen for student interactions. Our highlights, our findings from the classroom visits. And by the way, we strategically chose schools to attend. One criteria was, we looked at the schools we visited 5 years ago. We wanted to share that misery or share that opportunity to host a review. So we took them off the list where possible. If it's a school that is so centrally located or so much located on the left, on the coast or whatever, we may had to consider visiting that one again. But within that strategic sampling of schools, and by the way, at the last minute, we had to eliminate 2 schools that we were going to go to because of a team member who had to drop off. We could not replace her skill set. Within the schools that we did visit, we randomly chose classrooms to go to. I caution principals, don't tell me where your teacher of the year is, because if you tell me, I'm not going to go there. We're going to randomly, I'm going to knock on this door or that just by chance. It evens up the playing field. With the exception, we did not want to visit substitutes. They are not your trained veteran teachers, okay? The principals were very helpful with that, left us alone to knock on doors, and kids were very anxious to get up and let us in. One of the findings, supportive environment. This is a supportive atmosphere. This was your leading quality that our tool came up with. This is a teacher who knows when to hug that child, when to hug them a little bit tighter to get his attention, a classroom where kids support each other, a classroom that you can tell parents are supporting as well. We met your parents. That blended into it as well. Supportive learning environment we perceived. Well managed, not just discipline, but routines, practices, protocols. Do they have to be told over and over and over to put their books away when the bell rings or whatever? we look at practices, and is it the expectation? Do kids know what's going to go on, as opposed to a teacher having to tell them over and over and over? We look at discipline too. We look at students talking when they shouldn't be talking, whatever. That happens everywhere. But it was managed. This was a very close second in your highest ranked, most favorable environments. 1 and 2, very close together. On the other hand, digital environment, students' use of digital tools. And this is a very hard standard because we will observe a classroom for 20 minutes. And if we know that that classroom is going to have their Chromebooks out in 45 minutes later, we can't count it. It's only what we see during that 20 minutes. Are they using it? Not just the teacher. Teachers can be a whiz-bang. We value the students manipulating the tools. We saw less of that than we want you to be comfortable with, but we will say this is a universal truth. Wherever we go, the lowest, just about everywhere, the lowest environment is the student use of digital tools. It's something everybody is struggling with, everybody's working on, and it has to do with generations, at the age of teachers, training, and and expense. We know that. We saw technology being used, but not everywhere, not always at a high level. Lastly, the community demographics, and I say community rather than classroom because your classrooms are a reflection of the neighborhood or the students that are coming in. We understand that. We know you are growing at a rapid rate. We know your community has changed. The demographic makeup of your community has changed over the years, and guess what? You're going to continue growing, and within that growth is going to be continued change. We understand that, and we see nothing wrong with that. We are just bringing it to your attention to be cognizant of it and establish your role in that event. One of the things that we look for is can we observe that there's opportunities provided on purpose for students to learn, appreciate, and understand others' cultures, backgrounds, financial status of families, whatever. Kids are different from one block to another, from one school. We know that we have to have kids understanding each other. Maybe they'll become adults who understand and appreciate each other's backgrounds different. We're all a reflection of our overall society. Beyond the classroom, we looked at other sources of data, one of which was interviewing stakeholders. We interviewed a few stakeholders, 676. That was a long day. It gave us great numbers. It gave us great input, but we know that took a great effort and a great deal of coordination to get parents in at a certain hour, staff members in, whatever. Students in the schools, we interviewed them, as you can see. This was a great asset to us because we learned in every interview. We confirmed thoughts. We confirmed what we saw in another piece of information or another source, what we were believing. 676, but like the commercials on TV, but there's more. If you order now, you'll know. 22 more were interviewed as a part of the Early Learning Center review. You remember the team was made up of 3 early learning specialists who also are doing a companion report for the Early Learning Center. 22 stakeholders there were interviewed as well. Significant work to prepare that for us. We requested it, and I appreciate your support in that area. In all, there are some findings that we will share with you. Very briefly, the topic. There will be in the written report a statement of clarify what the issue is, probably better than I will say it today. A statement of the evidence, why we are convinced what we saw, what we're saying was real, and then a statement regarding a recommendation to deal with that finding or that reality. They're called themes. We have several themes that we will be developing for you. One involves the classroom, and it is the forever criteria that we want to see more and more of in the classroom. We saw great teachers. We saw great teaching going on. In general, however, we saw an absence to the degree of creativity, innovation, the excitement, getting kids dying to get back to school, to follow that lesson, collaborative problem solving, not just sitting at a desk with others, but working together to solve a real problem. And the use of digital tools comes up there. It all blends into a teaching style, pedagogy, if you will. There will be a theme identified there with evidence, rationale, and a recommendation. In the area of improving, these are ones we see where you've got a program going on that we are recommending. Looks like I might need some help in a minute. No, it might be, hopefully it'll be our next one. Differentiation. We want to help recognize that kids come into our classrooms with all sorts of life experiences, all sorts of academic experiences, all sorts of biases, and so forth. One size doesn't fit all. We know that. We saw differentiation, but we didn't see enough to the level that we were comfortable with. It's an ongoing struggle, if you will, working to provide the education that is both meaningful in a student's learning style and a student's learning interest, knowing that he may have learned this in 4th grade, but the rest of his class doesn't. But he's got to sit through it anyway. All sorts of factors there to take into consideration. Now, there we go. My slides are backwards. Program evaluation. When visiting the schools particularly, we noted a lot of resources, a lot of programs in use. Principals, teachers will be very glad to tell you about this, tell you about that. Sometimes if we visited 6 elementary schools, we'd hear 6 different, not different reading programs, but 6 different types of resources. Maybe all 6 of them are excellent. Maybe one of them is outlived its usefulness. Maybe one of them is more expensive now than because it's so old you have to keep replacing parts of it or whatever. We're suggesting a formal, if you will, a process, an expectation that what we're doing today, we review it. Is it still the best way to go about it? We feel that presence here in your central organization. We do feel that. At the school level, rightly so, principals and teachers are given a level of autonomy to make decisions for their community, for their stakeholders, and whatever. There's where we're suggesting a measure, a way to make sure that we're spending our only dollar we can spend that one time, spending it wisely, getting the best return on our investment, if you will. Didn't see anything wrong. We're not saying that. We're just saying make sure everything is as effective and as efficient as can. Sometimes programs can conflict. Well, they taught me this way in the 3rd grade, and now they're teaching me the same thing, but in a different way in the 4th grade. I don't know what I'm doing, you know. Other recommendations in the area of impact. Impact meaning where you're already making an impact. One of the criteria we look at are these practices embedded in the organization? Is it part of the culture? Is it a part of the way Lee County does this? One of those areas, leadership. Very impressed with your leaders. That starts with the board, starts with the central administration, your superintendent, that team, people in this building who provide that leadership to the schools. We were impressed with the principals and assistant principals that we interviewed. You notice the numbers of building administrators. That's not principals, that was assistant principals too that we interviewed on occasion, not all of them. Very, very impressed with that, and very impressed with the fact that you have a philosophy of developing your own talent pool. not just sending off to Virginia or West Virginia or somewhere to recruit administrators or lead teachers. You're trying to grow your own too. We've all got to do that. There's just, the market can't support us all. We think it's great. We like that you are focused on teacher leaders as well as administrative leaders. To be a leader, you don't have to leave the classroom. Operational processes. Very impressed with the culture, with the attitude, with the way we do things, primarily at the district level. We talked about some of the programs at the at the school levels. I'm talking about operational processes in this building that talk about the way we do things, the efficiency, the expectation, high level of expectation, and yet providing the autonomy to make things work as well. Another is strategic resource management. There's never enough money to go around. Facilities, time is another resource that we don't have enough to go around. Wish we had longer school days, but you have a balance there. The resource management, we were first introduced to a lot of it in your strategic plan, Vision 2020, very appropriate. All districts, most districts, have a strategic plan of this is where we're going, this is why, this is a measure when we'll know when we get there. Somebody has taken that further and created Envision 2030. Love it. We don't know what's going to happen in 2030. I hope we'll still have beaches with not the rising water and all like that or whatever, but you've got to start planning now. I'm not a Navy man, but the Navy will tell you, you've got to start early to turn that ship around or to alter the course. It doesn't happen overnight. The culture in a school doesn't happen overnight. The culture in a school district. One of the concepts that I heard here for the first time, the kindergarten child today is going to graduate when?
2032.
Exactly. That, I can remember that. I can personalize that down to this little child that I sat beside in the classroom yesterday, and that makes sense to me. Much better than on a time chart where I can see, okay, yeah, but that's so far away I don't have to worry about planning. We have to plan for that little child because that little girl's going to be grown up too often in just a couple of years. We've got to start making plans for her now. The awareness, the forecasting that all goes into that, the planning for contingencies, so forth. Very impressed with your process there, and we're going to recommend that you take it the next step. 2040 maybe, I don't know. Bottom line, that's who we're serving. The children, whether they're kindergarten, whether they look like this child or not. We are pleased to report in general that we saw and are impressed with your dedicated and focused teachers, your dedicated and focused administrators and staff, your parents, your stakeholders who are aware and have expectations of everybody in this room. We have to answer to them. They want engagement, they want dialogue, they want to be a part of the team, and they'll let you know if they don't feel like they are. All resulting in what we term a highly effective learning organization. And we're going to compliment you. You'll get the report, a full report with all the details and all the yes, ands, and buts within about 30 days. It has to go through an editing process, and the data has to be crunched by the programs and so forth. But in it, we'll share the data that we based our report on, the rationale for our discussions, and a full set of recommendations for you to what we think are ones that are intended to help you grow from where you are to where you want to continue growing to be. Madam Chairwoman, that is our report, And we are looking forward to the rest of our work of finalizing that report for you.
Thank you very much. And is there anyone else from your organization that wanted to say anything, or you're
As a matter of fact, the others and I have an airplane to catch.
very
And we don't have any control over those security gates. So if you understand, we're ready to leave.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can we give them a hand for all the hard work they did? Thank you very, very much. And is there anything for the good of the order? No one? Everyone's ready to go to the airport. Thank you so much, and meeting adjourned.
Thank you.